Of a reprisal of what we spoke about Shabbos a few weeks ago that some of the Chavra wanted me to mention again, at least for the sake of recording it, which ties very deeply into everything that we are learning in Sefer Yeshayahu. Hold on, let's make this do not disturb. That would be important. So what? I don't think it's going to be live. Hold on. Yeah, you got it? Got it. Ashreichem. Good. Baruch Hashem. Mamdani, Mishpat and Moshiach. There's a lot to explain what exactly is going on here. And there's a billion things to talk about. The question that we left off with in the Navi, and we're going to come back to this question. The question that we left off with is the Navi, Yeshayahu, is telling us about a world. He's describing a world, speaking to a world where there is a Beis Hamikdash and they have Korbanos and they have Kohanim and things are good. Things are decent, and there is a soon to be one of two things: either things are going to go amazingly well, which is what the Navi wants to happen, or things are about to get really bad. Like things are going to get much worse than they are currently. And we mentioned the fact that we're talking about a world where the clippers that you have, and this is what we saw in Ramashdav Valley, that the clippers that you have of Chesed and Gevurah are not bothersome. I mean, the world is good. Things are great. People have parnassa, and they have jobs, and they have health, and they have prosperity, and they have children, and I mean, things are solid. Like, life is good. And then the Navi is addressing this world and saying, Chavra, it's good, but it's not going to be good for much longer if you don't shape up. And the overarching, this is what we spoke about in the first year, the overarching problem is that people are going through the motions and not connected to anything in any meaningful way. And the question is why? The question is why? And that is the overarching question that we need to address within this sugya of Sefer Yeshayahu, and it deeply relates to everything that's going on in the world today. In some very profound ways, everything from Mishpatim, which includes, we should just point out the lawfare that is going on in America and in Israel. That there is something called lawfare, meaning the law is wielded as a political vehicle. We're going to talk about that for real. But that we see the corruption of law and the utilization of law as part of political whatever. And we saw this, Rahman Islam, 2 years ago, 2 years plus, where the whole of Israel was falling apart because of judicial reform or not judicial reform or whatever that meant, which is still happening in Israel, just not in the same way, meaning it's shifted and morphed and there's a lot to figure out and talk about. Good. And then we have to talk about what this has to do with Mamdani and what this has to do with New York and what this has to do with Mashiach and what this has to do with everything that we're going through currently, because there is a thread that runs through all of this. And it's important to point out here, the Navi, when relating to what's going wrong in Yerushalayim, in the first Perek, he writes as follows. And this is, of course, the Haftarah for Shabbos Chazal. Echa ha'yisal zayna kirya nemana. How could it be that this faithful city turned into a city of harlotry, of prostitution? Now, does that mean that this city is now becoming a city of prostitutes? Like that's what's wandering around Yerushalayim? Pashtus, no. It's not that like they've legalized prostitution in Yerushalayim. That's not what Yeshayahu is talking about. Rashi says here, Hayisal Zaina, and you see this mashal throughout the Nevi'im, Hayisal Zaina to'a me'al Eloheha. That the people have abandoned their relationship with God, and therefore they have become, so to speak, an unfaithful wife. You see this mashal throughout the Nevi'im, that the Jewish people have this relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that Hashem is the husband, we, the Jewish people, are the wife, and chasing after other gods is not just a sin of Avodah Zarah, but is also fundamentally cheating on God. We should point out that today, when people talk about not being a religious Jew, they either talk about being an atheist, whatever that means, which is topic for another time. That's normatively what people talk about in America. Or historically, when people talk about not being a religious Jew, they talk about converting to another religion. In the days of Tanakh, the problem was not that they abandoned Hashem. It's not that they left Torah and picked another religion. It's that they were being more religious, meaning they were observing more religions. You went to shul on Shabbos and you went to church on Sunday. All of it. You took all the religions. The drive for Avodah Zarah is not a drive against the Torah. It is in addition to the Torah.
Shlomo had multiple.
Correct.
That was one of his.
Meaning he has wives that were over Avodah Zarah. It doesn't mean that
they kept those places going. You didn't destroy them.
Yeah, that's a good question, and we'll talk about Shlomo another day.
Okay.
Meaning it's Kedai, because there's a billion things to talk about Shlomo Melech. Not for today. But Bichlal, we should know that the Avodah Zarah that the Tanakh describes is not an Avodah Zarah as opposed to being Shemitah Torah mitzvahs. It's Avodah Zarah in addition to being Shemitah Torah mitzvahs. They would keep Shabbos and then bring Korbanos and then
go to Shabbos and then you tailgate Moscow.
100%. Right?
No, it
doesn't negate.
Right.
Correct. It means in addition to.
You catch Mincha by Epcot.
Correct. That's it. 100%. But, by the way, but what we're talking about here is that you went and you brought your sacrifice to God, and then you also went and sacrificed to Baal.
Oh, they actually did sacrifices. No?
Yeah, 100%. In fact, to the extent that when Yeshayahu Navi is standing at the top of Har Carmel, he says to them, "Ad matai atem poschim al shtei asifim." For how long are you going to waver between being people that are worshiping God and people that are worshiping Baal? The Pashas is that they did both, right? It was like Mashabali, like whatever I'm interested in today, or maybe both, or maybe neither, right? Like you can do a little. Masalamad David Domer. I've said this to her before. It's a very kedai mashal to be aware of. I have a relative who part of his business is his company. So they had like all the up and coming management, like leadership of the company. They hired a coach for this whole chevra, and the coach said that aside from the business stuff and all the whatever stuff, they also all have to get on a diet. So they asked, what diet do we need to get on? And he said, whatever diet you want for 90 days, they all work. Every diet works. Meaning, if you map it on this diet, what's the reason that people don't lose weight on their diet? Is because it's inconsistent, right? And we have this Yeshayahu for like, it's not working for me, I need to switch. That's the harlotry that the Navi is describing in our relation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You have something that's like, what? I tried. I learned Daf Yomi for a week and a half, and I'm still not a Talmud Chacham. But yes, obviously, it's not going to work like that. Everything that's worthwhile takes time and takes work. And meaning, so there's this feeling of like jumping around. But what's interesting here is that the Navi is not relating to the Avodah Zarah. He's relating to the lack of consistency that people are having in terms of their Avodas Hashem. Rashi fills us in here from Chazal that there's like a backdrop of Avodah Zarah that's going on, but the Navi doesn't say Avodah Zarah. What does the Navi say is the problem? What does it mean, Melesi Mishpat? It used to be a Kiryan Nemana, Umle'a Mishpat, says Rashi. It used to be a faithful city filled with mishpat. What's mishpat?
Justice.
So law and order, right? Law and order. V'tzedek haya, the pasuk says, tzedek yalimba. Tzedek was once upon a time resting there, was residing there. Ve'ata meratzchim. And now they are murderers. What's going on? What are we talking about? Avodah Zarah? Gila Rais? Shvichus Damim? What is this? Sounds like all three, right? In fact, Chazal Odorish, that all three of those Averis were the reasons that the first base of English was destroyed. But the thing that the Navi is bemoaning here is not the Avodah Zarah, and it's not the Gila Rais. It's the lack of Mishpat, the lack of law and order. Now, he carries on. Yasayim lo yishpotu v'riv almana lo yavoy alehem. They don't judge cases involving orphans, and fights involving widows does not come to them. Does not come to who? Who's responsible here?
The Bezdin or the kings? Well, you have a Sanhedrin or...
Sarayich Sarurim. The officials. The powers that be. They're Sarurim. They're wayward. V'chavrei ganavim kuloi ohev shochad. They're a bunch of thieves that all love bribery. V'roidech shalmanim. They like getting paid off. That's why Yasam lo yishpotu. They don't take the cases involving widows and orphans. They're not dealing with it. Why? It's not profitable. It's not profitable. Lochein ne'um ha'adon Hashem tzvakais abir Yisrael, so says Hashem. Hoy anachem mitzarai v'nakma me'ovai. I'm going to take care of the situation. I will take vengeance from those that oppose me. Va'ashiva yadi alaich. I will put my hand on top of you. V'etzrov kabar sigaich. V'asira kol b'dilaich. And I will smelt you and remove all of the impurities. It's a very harsh mashal. What will be the result of this process? Va'ashiva shavtaich kvarishona v'yatzach kvatchila. I will establish justice as it once was, and advisors as they were at the beginning. Achareichein, and thereafter, yikarei lach ir hatzedek kiryah ne'emana, and then you will once again be called a city of tzedek, of righteousness, kiryah ne'emana, a capital of faithfulness, meaning a capital of justice. And this is the end of the Haftarah that we read. Shabbos Chazan, Tzion b'mishpat tivteh v'shaveh b'tzedakah. That Tzion will be redeemed b'mishpat, with justice, v'shaveha, and its captives, b'tzedakah, through righteousness.
Any connection to Malki Tzedek?
Very much so. Because where is Malki Tzedek the king of? Yerushalayim. Malki Tzedek.
Shalom.
Now, not to get into too much of this, but it's good to understand that the world of tzedek, that the idea of tzedek is very deeply connected to the world of tzaddik, which is related to the world of tzedakah. And this the Yeshayahu points out in Shar Aleph and Shar Beis, at the beginning of Yeshayahu, that the midah of Yesod, now this is for you, for the Mukubalim in the room, that the idea of tzaddik is which midah? Yesod. And the world of tzedek is the world of malchus. And in order for Yesod to be mashpia into the world of malchus, in order for things to flow, in order for things to work, in order for it to be good, you need the tzaddik, the meaning people, to embody the ideals and ideas of tzedek, to bring it into the world of tzedakah. Meaning, the ideas of tzaddik have to be brought into the world of tzedakah, and that would then be called the process of tzedek. You make it into tzedek. And if that goes wrong, if nobody embodies the ideas and ideals of tzaddik and the values of tzedek, then no tzedakah occurs, and then there is a breakdown of all good things. But on a very simple level, what that means is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu programmed the world that if you do things in order and in coordination with the Ratzon of Hashem, then brachas will happen. Then you get all the good stuff. And if you don't, if there is a breakdown of the values of the systems of law and order, then things start to slowly fall apart. Things fall apart. That's what ends up happening. Now, what will be the end result of everything going well and good? Give me 1 second, because that button is going to keep on beeping forever. There we go. There's a niggin that is played by the laundry machine. What happens when everything goes well? What's the end result? The net result is what he talks about, what we spoke about before in Perek Beis. Hadavar asher chazah Yeshayahu ben Amoz al Yehuda v'Yerushalayim. This is the thing that Yeshayahu envisions about Yehuda and Yerushalayim. V'haya ba'achris hayamim. It will be at the end of days, which is the thing that we're aiming for, which he's hoping for is going to be ASAP. That the mountain of Hashem is going to be top of all the mountains, and all the nations of the world are going to coalesce towards it. Velchu amim rabim, and all nations are going to come to Yerushalayim. V'amru, they will say, Lechu v'na'aleh el har Hashem el beis Elokei Yaakov. Let us go up to the mountain of Hashem, to the place of Beis Yaakov, meaning the house of the God of Yaakov. V'yiranu midrachav, and we will be Yorenu midrachav, and we will be educated from their ways. V'nelcha ba'orech hasav, and we will walk in their paths. Because from Tzion comes Torah, and the word of Hashem comes to Yerushalayim. And what will then happen? V'shafat bein hagoyim, and then Hashem will judge between all the nations. Meaning, the point of Beis Hamikdash, the world of Moshiach Achris Hayom, is that we, the Jewish people, will demonstrate what it means to live in a world of Mishpat. We will have a world of law and order. And all of the brachas that Hashem has available to give to the world, which is infinite, he will give to the Jewish people and through the Jewish people. And then the whole world is going to come and they're going to go, oh my gosh, we want some of that. Please show us your ways. Teach us your ways. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah dvar Hashem miYerushalayim. That's the goal. What happens if this doesn't work out?
Which it didn't.
What happens? What does go from there?
Try again.
Civil war, destruction,
falls apart.
Everything falls apart.
Exile, and
Clearly exile.
You have a lawless world.
So,
The world of Gullus.
So yes and no. You have a world of Gullus, but you don't have a world of lawlessness. What do you have instead? A world of ultimate law. Law that is not the Mishpat of the Torah. Right? You have a different kind of law. A law that is not the law of the Torah. And if it's better than anarchy, we agree that any kind of law is better than anarchy. One of the Sheva Mitzvahs ben Enoch is to establish dinim, to establish law and order. That is part and parcel of the chiyuv of every nation. But it's important to understand that the laws of the nations of the world, those laws don't bring bracha to the Jewish people and through the Jewish people. They might bring bracha to the nation that is observing them, and commensurate with their upkeep of law and order within the framework of tzedek and tzedakah and tzaddik. There is such a concept by the Ummah Ha'olam. There will be bracha that will come to them. But please understand that bracha that then comes to them and through them means that whomever is the deciding force of law and order in the world becomes the place through which shefa bracha occurs. Meaning, whoever establishes justice in the world becomes the conduit of bracha for the world, but also might be not the kind of thing that we are excited about as the Jewish people. Hence, in every nation that we have lived in throughout the last 2,000 years of exile, there has been big bracha that has happened in many, many, many places. There have been many empires that have been very successful. And when an empire is successful, then that empire and its value system spreads. There is further success. And when that idea and ideal of those empires are exported into the world, then whatever the capital is of that place, of that nation, becomes the capital city of the world. And by capital city, what I mean is the cultural, philosophical, ethical, financial, economic hub through which all things flow. And I think that it is not an exaggeration to say that certainly since the 1940s, the end of the Second World War and the Holocaust, the United States of America has been the only world power. At least the only world power stable enough to be able to export its ideology. Other countries have tried. It's not to say that there hasn't been some success. But if you were to say, what is the capital of the West? America is for sure the capital country of the West. And the capital city of the West is?
New York.
New York, Pashut. Pashut that New York City is the capital city of Western civilization.
Culturally.
Not only that.
Financially,
culturally, and internationally. The pasuk V'naharu alav kol hagoyim, that's the place that all nations come to. That is the seat of the United Nations. Now, we're not big fans of the United Nations because the United Nations has effectively become shill for Muslim extremism. And there's a reason for that, by the way. It's a pasuk that we just read. What's the reason? I don't want to go too off topic with this, but just al regel achas. Because ki mitzion teitze Torah udvar Hashem Yerushalayim. Ki mitzion teitze Torah means whomever is in control of that mountaintop creates the narrative of morality for the world. That's the pasuk. Ki mitzion teitze Torah. From Har Habayit comes Torah. What does Torah mean? Literally, as it says, Torah from the lashon of yorehu, to educate. Whoever is in control of that mountaintop is in control of the narrative of what the world thinks. And since it is in control of radical Islam, that is part and parcel of the moral, ethical narrative of the world. Understand that well. That's not my chiddush. That's Yeshayahu speaking, and the Christians understood it, and the Muslims understood it, which is why they fought to be in control of that mountaintop. Not necessarily to create a city around it. That never happened, neither in Muslim times nor in Christian times. They never resurrected the city of God, Yerushalayim, but they were in control of that mountaintop because they understood innately, whoever is in charge of that place is in charge of the narrative of morality, of ethics, of the idea of right and wrong and kedusha in the world. It's why until such time as we are in full control, forget building the Beis HaMikdash for now. That'll come. But until we are in full control of that and we stake our claim to this is our mountaintop and we're in charge of it, you're welcome to pray there if you like. Ki beisi beis tefillah yikar l'chalamin. You're more than welcome to. But it's ours. Until that point in time, the discussion of the United Nations is not going to change, because the control of that mountaintop is not in the hands of people that are Shemot Mitzvahs. They're in control of people that hate us and want to destroy us. And you understand that the whole October 7th thing, Al-Hamas, meaning what did they call that? They called that the Al-Aqsa flood. They were thinking about Har Bayit. That's what they're fighting for. Because they know that if Har Bayit is not in the control of Muslims, then the whole conversation is a different one. They know it. We also know it, which is probably the reason that we haven't taken control over it yet. Because it means that now we have to be in charge of the national narrative of the Jewish people, and then the narrative of morality for the world. But my dear sweet and holy friends, it appears to me that this is exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is asking from our generation right now. Maybe I'm wrong. But the fact that the person that is now in charge of New York City, or is soon to be in charge of New York City, democratically elected, is somebody that does not believe in the values of the West. Let's just put it like that. Forget the anti-Semitism stuff. Doesn't believe in the values of the West. And he doesn't believe in the supremacy of New York City as being the capital city of the West. It means that there is a window, that there is an opening of an up for grabs of what the next capital of civilization is about to become. Because it might well be that the idea of the West being the dominant culture of the world, that is on its way down. And the shaila then is what will take its place. And anybody that's seen what's going on in the world knows that, at least for a time, questionable whether they would have any success at this right now, but that Iran was vying for that position. Baruch Hashem, it seems that that is not going to be on the table. And for a while, Russia's been vying for that position. Also seems that that's not going to be on the table. Arguably, China is trying very hard at that, meaning trying to create a new currency that's going to be the world currency, trying to create a new economy that's going to be the world economy, which means culturally they are trying to shift the world to a China-centric. But it means that there is a possibility that this whole thing is going to change. And by the way, oy vavoy for the world if the dominant culture becomes China. Because whereas, and I don't say this with too much bracha, but whereas Christianity and Islam were heavily influenced by Yiddishkeit, by Torah, and by monotheism, the same cannot be said about China. They don't have the same morality, the same system. They have their own system of law and order, and very chazak about it. And the fact that they have a system of law and order means that there is bracha that's coming to them, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu says you get bracha through Mishpat. But if that becomes the dominant culture of the world, we're in trouble. And so the Navi is saying, what needs to happen in order for Yerushalayim to become the capital of the world? We need to be living in accordance with the Mishpat of the Torah. And I'll tell you what I don't mean by this. It doesn't mean judicial reform. That's small fry. That's not the sugya here. It's not that you have from judges in the Supreme Court of Israel. And it doesn't even mean that the Beis Din in Eretz Yisrael is given the same status as secular court. It means, I'll share with you a Torah from Rabbi Nachman. This is found in the Kutim Aran in Reish Pei. It's a long-ish Torah, which we're not going to do in all of the details, but there's a piece of it at the beginning that's very kedai to know. Das is Rabbi Nachman. Misha tzarich ladun lifnei dayanim bedin Torah. Somebody that needs to appear in a beis din, in front of dayanim, for a din Torah. Most of the dinei Torah that exist in Bati Din, some of the dayanim in the beis din in America told me, the majority of cases are between brothers and brothers-in-law and best friends and neighbors. Why?
I don't feel like they need any agreements beforehand or any contract.
Because everybody's going to do a solid for their buddy, right? You're looking out for my best interest, I'm looking out for your best interest, it's all going to work well. And if it does, what happens if it goes sour? So now all of a sudden, you start wondering about all the things that you should have put in place beforehand. Mm-hmm. All the contracts and all the details and all the deals and all the adim and all the... How long were you planning on taking before you paid me back? How long was this loan for? We both knew that it was not indefinite, but when does that end? Says Rabbi Nachman, Misha tzarich ladun lifnei dayanim b'din Torah, ze lo oynish unakama she'Torah nakams by. This is for him, ze lo with a vav. This is the oynish and the kama of the Torah. To go to beis din is the Torah taking retribution against you. That's the nakama that Hashem speaks about in the Navi. He says, I will take retribution. What's the retribution of the Torah? Ki be'emes, because the truth is, kol hamasa umatan hu Torah. Every business deal that a person does is Torah. You knew that? Every time that you go to work, every time that you buy or sell, sign a contract, close a deal, work on a merger, restock a store, every masal matan, every business deal, every hiring, every firing, that's called Torah. Where? How? Says Kila Mashal, for example, Hadin Hamachlif par b'chama. The halacha of somebody exchanging a cow for a donkey. Who Torah? That's a din in the Torah. And if a person is doing this himself, is considering what to do in business, and is thinking, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want from me in this business deal? What's the din here? So that's called Torah. He says, like they said about this, about the Baal Shem Tov, that everything that he did was Torah. Every wagon drive and every ruble and every inn and every kretschma and every innkeeper, and it's all Torah. All the Sibur Ma'aser, it's all Torah. Now when a person goes and does business, when a person goes and does business, the avodah is to tie together the thing that you're doing with the dinim of the Torah. You have a Shas and you have a Shulchan Aruch, you have Mishnayos and you have Gemaras and Rishonim, and you have to think to yourself, what is the din here? What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want from me in this case? And a person that uproots the business from Torah, meaning is thinking about making a deal. It's thinking that this deal is a Shark Tank situation. I am speaking to investors and they're speaking to me, and now I have to, are we going to make a deal? What happens? You fall into this business by yourself, and you don't connect to the Torah that is enclosed within this, that is inherent within this thing. Then the punishment is, then the Torah says, no. You abandoned me. So things didn't go right. Things went poorly because you weren't acting with Mishpat of the Torah. What is Mishpat of the Torah? Is the avodah of being Mekasher, the thing that I'm doing, to what's Ratzon Hashem. That's the whole sugya. Is the thing that I'm doing connected to God? Then what happens? In Rav later, this is called B'chinas Tshuva. You go to the Beis Din, and the Dayanim of the Beis Din now interrogate you. They ask you about all the things that you could have done and should have done and would have done if you would have been thinking in accordance with the din of the Torah. That's called Tshuva. You have to go back and you have to rehash everything. What could I have done and what should I have done and what would I have done if I would have been thinking, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want from me? That's called Mishpat. So tzarich la'avi hakol al Torah, because you have to bring everything to Torah. What are you going to do? You're going to give testimony. You're going to say a sipur dvarim. You're going to tell over the whole story of everything that happened for them to point out all the places that you missed, the connection that you were supposed to have with Hashem. There's a hole over there. If you would have thought about what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from you, you would have realized that the correct thing to do would have been to overcome the ego that you had in this place, and to have a conversation with your brother-in-law about that thing. It would have been to be humble enough to admit that you don't know how you're going to raise the money for this thing, and then, right? If you would have considered that it might not be 100% ethical for you to delay the payment for this supplier or these employees in order to make sure that you had enough money to present it. If you would have thought, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want here? If you would have written all of it down, if you would have stipulated Hakol Kedas Din according to the din of the Torah, so then you wouldn't have been in this situation. And now that you're in that situation, the Torah is coming and being teveh from you. And you have to say it in front of the Dayanim. And the Dayanim, by the way, what are Dayanim called in the Torah? Or Elohim. Ad ha-Elohim yavoy dvar shnehem. They come in front of the Elohim, which is Chol, doesn't mean that they're God, but it's the same avodah. It's the avodah of connecting this to a system of authority, a system of justice, a system of power. It's connecting it appropriately to Midas Hadin. That's what Elohim is. It's Rashi at the beginning of Chumash. Bereshis bara Elohim es hashamayim es haaretz. At the beginning of Hashem's creation, but the creation of the one that creates law and order. And if we live in accordance with an appropriate sense of what's right and what's wrong, and what's correct and what's not correct, then we are mekasher, we connect all of the things that we engage in to what the Ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, and then bracha comes, and then it works. Now what happens if we don't? What happens if we don't do this? So then anarchy, then things fall apart, and we're not connecting all the things appropriately to the world of Torah. There's a chiddush that the Torah has that doesn't exist in pretty much any other religion. And that is that included in the avodah of Talmud Torah, in fact, the majority, if you walk into any normative yeshiva today, the majority of time in any yeshiva Gedolah, after high school, people go, they're learning in yeshiva. What do we learn in yeshivas? Nashim and Nezikin. Baba Kama, Baba Tzia, Baba Basra. What's Baba Kama about? Damages, borrowing, lending, things breaking. Baba Tzia, ownership. Kiddushin, Ksubas, halachas of marriage, Gittin halachas of divorce, and all the financial obligations that are there within. In Christianity, there are many halachas of kedusha, so to speak, of rites and rituals. There are no laws in Christianity about borrowing and lending. It's not halachas in Christianity about damages. Who deals with that? The government of whatever country. Meaning, in America, we have something called the separation of church and state. What does that mean, a separation of church and state? It means that chol has nothing to do with kodesh. Now, we also agree that hamavdil ben kodesh and chol. There is a difference between kodesh and chol. But Chol is related to the world of Kedusha. There is a connection between them. Nobody will tell you that the avoda of going to work and paying your workers on time is the same as shaking lulav and esrog and shul in terms of the kedusha or the rites and rituals, but it is equally a mitzvah de'oraisa and perhaps even more so. Meaning there is a mitzvah in the world of chol. That's fascinating. We make brachas when we leave the bathroom. Why? Because there's nothing outside of the world of Ratzon Hashem. People joke about, you have the joke about the Baal Tshuva, that like they told him, after years and years of being a Baal Tshuva, they said to him, we just found out that you're not Jewish. And he says, oh, Gewalt, I want to convert to Judaism. I'm so excited to be a Yid. He says, okay, but in the meantime, tomorrow we'll convert you. We'll convene the basin, we'll convert you, we'll send you off to the mikveh. What are you going to do today? You're a guy. You're a non-Jew, a chol davar, right? So what do you want to do? What do you want to do? You're one day off of being a Jew. He goes, I'm going to put on my left shoe before my right shoe. Right? From Avera. What does the Shulchan Aruch care what shoe you put on? And why is it that you put in your right shoe before your left shoe and tie your left shoe before your right shoe? Anybody know what's the reason for this?
Yeshayahu, I think, talks about it, but I don't remember.
To make it holy, I guess. But right to left is like a chesed.
We always want to do certain things right first.
It's also for safety.
Why'd you tie your left shoe first?
That's Gvura, maybe.
Because you're just there.
You want to know why?
It's the most efficient way of doing it. You right them, because if you do a right shoe and then tie that shoe and then put the left shoe on, like if someone starts chasing you, like you only have one shoe on. This is the way of risk management.
It's cute.
That's what it says there. No.
No.
Okay, I'm
Pretty sure.
No.
No, I'm pretty sure it's in there.
What's the din? Is you want to tie your left shoe first because tying is connected to tefillin, and you tie your tefillin on your left arm, huh?
I do my right arm. So I should put my left shoe on first?
Arguably, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What does it have to do with tefillin? The shoes. What shoes have to do with tefillin? That's exactly the point. Is can you look at tying your shoes like you look at putting on tefillin? That this is also the Rosh Kedusha. That I can have Kedusha infusing even tying my shoes. That's a different way of looking at the world. It's not a question of you need to tie your left shoe for. It's when I put on shoes in the morning, I'm thinking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the question. Is HaKadosh Baruch Hu infused in my day-to-day activities? Does Hashem come with me from the bedroom to the bathroom to the boardroom to the base medrash? Or does he stay in the base medrash, and when I leave the base medrash, it's all over? And the Shorish of Avodah Zarah, my dear sweet and holy friends, we pointed this out, there's been Zang Vishbitz at the beginning of Sefer Bereshis. The Rambam tells us that the beginning of Avodah Zarah was people worshipped the sun. Why did they worship the sun? Because they said the sun is an emissary of God, a very powerful emissary of God, a very choshev emissary of God. But what's the nekuda behind it? Why do you want to worship the sun?
It's closer, it's more tangible.
That's what they told themselves. You know why you really want to worship the sun?
It goes away.
Because it goes away at night. Then it's free time. I'll be frum during the day. The night time is for me. I'm a very frum sun god worshipper. What does Avodah Zarah afford a person the ability to do? To ignore the fact that the world is Melech ha'aretz kavada. That leis oto ponomine, that there's no place absent of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now understand that the root system of law that exists in every other culture is a removal from God consciousness. Because there is a separation between church and state. Law and order, and it's true, bracha comes through law and order. But law and order that is divorced from a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu turns into lawfare. It becomes a tool to wield for personal gain. Because what Rabbi Nachman is describing here is that if a person comes to Beis Din, this is the Torah saying do tshuva for not thinking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But if you show up in a Beis Din, and all that you're trying to do is to figure out how to mess over your friend, so that's not called Beis Din. That's not called Din Torah. That's called trying to figure out how to finagle so that you can get more stuff. That's the antithesis of the Ratzon of Hashem. The question is, how do I do that which is right and good in the eyes of God? And involve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in my business. Involve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in my relationship between husband and wife. Involve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the challenges that exist between family and friends and neighbors. So that we can all be thinking about how HaKadosh Baruch Hu should be existent in our day-to-day life. And that when we mess up, we go to a Din Torah and we figure out what is the tshuva that we have to do. Where did I go wrong that I didn't think about HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And now the Beis Din is going to tell me, this is where, and you have to fix this up. Because when we get that right, well then, Ki mitzion teitzei Torah, udvar Hashem Yerushalayim, and the whole world wants to come, and they will say, we really want to figure out how to be like the Jewish people, because they get it right. Because when you live with a sense of God consciousness in everything that you do, on a national level, well, then all the bracha comes to the Jewish people and through the Jewish people, and Yerushalayim becomes the capital city of the world. And that's the goal that the Navi is describing here. What's going wrong? A breakdown in the relationship between the world of Kodesh and the world of Chol. And so the Navi says, Lama li rov zivchecha? Why do I care about your karbanos? You think I want you to live a ritual life without living a righteous life? You think I'm interested in how much kavanah you daven in shul when you're not taking care of the yasam and the almana? You think I care about the dedication that you made to the Beis Hamikdash? How much money you spent on an esrog? When your brother-in-law is like starving and you don't care about helping him, pay for groceries? That's not the world that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to build here. We're not supposed to create a world of ritual mountaintops, but a place of education of how to care about people and how to live in a world of justice, of how to do that which is right and that which is good, and and to do that from the place that is also the seat of Avodas Hashem. That the world should see that when a person becomes more connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that influences the way that they treat other people. We all know the biggest Chilul Hashem, and it's not necessarily fair to say it like this, but the biggest Chilul Hashem is when from people do unethical things, right? If you see a Jew that's not Shomer Torah mitzvahs, cheating on their taxes, he fell prey to whatever, Yetzirah for money, power, whatever. But if you see a guy with a shtarmel and a bekish and pace, and he cheats on his taxes, what do you say? Ichsa. Ichsa. Why is that so ichsa? But he also has a Yetzirah for money. No. Is that we deeply believe as Jews that it should be that if you are more connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you should be more of an ethical person. And the breakdown between these two things, that's what the Navi is talking about. Which is why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, I'm going to smack you for this. Because I'm not looking for you to be frum. In Lithuania, they used to say frum. Frum was like a curse word. They say frum is a galach. Frum is for the priest. In Lithuania, they used to say, a yid is nicht frum, a yid is ehrlich. The point is not to be frum, it's to be a person of integrity. That there shouldn't be a breakdown between Kodesh and Chol. That in the same way that you live with Kedusha in your world of Kedusha, you live with Kedusha in your world of Chol. If I'm not mistaken, this is the Chiddush of the Meiri. It's Meiri in Yevamis. The halacha is that when you convert somebody to Judaism, you have to teach them miktzas mitzvahs kolos, miktzas mitzvahs chamuras. You have to give them a sample of light mitzvahs and a sample of heavy mitzvahs. So the Meiri writes that the chiddush is not the heavy mitzvahs, the light mitzvahs. Whatever light and heavy means. This is because no other religion has light mitzvahs. They only have heavy mitzvahs. Everything is a big deal. You only have big deals. Judaism is the only religion that has small deals. Stuff that you have to do persistently, consistently, with honesty and with integrity for the rest of your life, bits and pieces every single day. Like you already have, like in Islam, you have like 5 pillars of Islam, right? In Christianity, you have like the 7 deadly sins. In Ba'as, you have 613 mitzvahs and thousands of dinim d'oraisa and d'rabbanan. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is part of your life. Hashem is part of everything that you do. That's the point. He lives with you at home. There's a beautiful verse that was, I forgot his name. He was the chief rabbi of Warsaw before the war. It says, Ki beisi beis tefillah yikar l'chol ha'amim, that my house will be the house of tefillah for all the nations. Since a Jewish home is the equivalent of a non-Jewish house of worship. Ki beisi beis tefillah. In every Jewish home. You walk into a non-Jewish home, what do you find? Find, a bed and a couch and a TV and a kitchen. And what do people do there? They eat and they sleep and they drink and they play with their kids. You hope. You work from home. You walk into a Jewish home, what do you find? You find Sfarim and you find a Kiddush cup and you find a menorah and you find Havdalah. Yeah? Basically, it's a place of tefillah. It's a place of the worship of God is at home. And should be in your business. And should be in your car. And should be on your phone. And should be on your laptop. Should be a place of tefillah. What the nations call a house of worship is called a Jewish home. And the breakdown of that's called a v'zar. Because it means that you want to go and worship something else. It means you don't have to think about Hashem right now. Because that gets you off the hook of God consciousness. And that breakdown is called the breakdown of law and order in society. And then it goes to other nations. And we haven't spoken about this yet, but I'll give you the sneak preview of it. What the Navi is issuing a warning of. The Navi is saying, either you and we'll see this in the upcoming prakim, either you become the empire or someone else will become the empire. Because empires haven't happened yet. Either you become the empire or somebody else will. And I hesitate to say that I think that the same thing is happening now. Because Baruch Hu is looking at Klal Yisrael, is looking at Eretz Yisrael, is looking at Har Beis Elokeinu, and saying, all the systems of law and order in the world, all the systems of cultural prominence are starting to drop down. There is an opportunity now to become Kiryat Ne'emana Ir HaTzedek. It is the next stage of the process of Geula, as detailed in the Shemana Esrei. Because after the bracha, this is Gemara in brachas, the Gemara Megillah, after the Kabba Shofar Gadol Cherasin B'Sam Nes Tekabetz Galu Yisenu, V'Kabtzenu Yachad Me'abar Konfais Aretz. After the ingathering of the exiles, Baruch Atah Hashem Mekabetz Nilchama Yisrael, the next bracha is Hashiva Shavtenu Parashana. Re-establish a system of justice, of goodness, of kindness, of righteousness, of connection between Hashem and everything that you do. That when you have a question, before you worry about going to a Beis Din, you think, what would HaKadosh Baruch Hu want me to do now? What's it say in Shulchan Aruch? What's it say in Chashim Mishpat? What's the meta-halachic principle that I'm supposed to apply here? Like maybe Rabbi Blachman always describes from the Nefesh HaChaim, that's the goal of Nashim Nezikim, is to develop a meta-halachic understanding. What does Hashem want you to do in business? What does Hashem want you to do in marriage? What does Hashem want you to do in the Beis HaMikdash? What does Hashem want you to do in your field? What does Hashem want you to do when it comes to spending your time? That's the whole of Seder Moed. What's the meta-halachic value system that is supposed to be imbued in the thing that you do? And that the Navi is saying, Chavri, you're missing the point. You bring Karbanos, but there's no God there. Karbanos there is. But out on the street, you're not worrying about the Ger and the Yasam and the Amana. You're not taking the cases that are dealing with the hard questions. And so that's what we're holding right now. There's a billion more things to talk about. But that opportunity that Yeshayahu is describing, I think for the very first time in Jewish history, since Yeshayahu, maybe since Bar Kokhba, we have this opportunity. And we dare not get this wrong, because the whole thing works when we start thinking about connecting what we do to why we do it. That's to be continued.